welcome into Raptors today. Akil Augustine, the well-dressed Sherman Hamilton, and the principal Paul Jones talking Raptors brand basketball. A big win on a Sunday afternoon in Charlotte, but the story, of course, 20 seems to be the number.
Yep.
128 to 108, but 20 points, 20 assists, a new franchise record in assists for the Toronto Raptors, scored by Fred VanVleet. And people talk a lot about Fred, a little trigger-happy at times for some of the fans. Is he a traditional point guard? Well, he spoke to the people with the way he played against the Hornets. Sherman, your impressions of the performance he put on Sunday?
What's a traditional point guard anymore?
Right.
Well, Fred, to me, makes a lot of things go for this team. You know, when you're talking about the leadership aspect, both on and off the floor, but then the play itself. And going into that game against Charlotte, if anybody understood what would need to be done against a team that doesn't have a multitude of players, that has a bunch of young guys that are getting opportunities and they have some athleticism, they're hungry, they're long, he understands that because he knows what it's like to have to fight through and get an opportunity and make something happen. So the wildness and the unpredictability of that situation makes Fred realize he's got to get his team ready to play against a team that could be a quote-unquote trap game. So he came out, he set the tone early. He was aggressive, he looking for his offense. He had 6 of his 20 assists in that first quarter. So him and Jakob had a good flow going on. You know, he'd found Pascal. OG had a very good game as well. But I just thought his leadership overall and his game management was phenomenal. He did a great job at really handling the situation. Remember, the last game against Philly, he had 2 crucial turnovers late, which was very uncharacteristic of Fred. He knew he had to be better. He knew he had to lead his team, and I thought he got them off to a great start, which you have to do in a situation like that.
His assists were, we often talk about impactful assists, right? Like the real assist where you get it to the guy and all he has to do is put it in. Fred seemed to have a lot of those. Or, you know, we saw the one where he swings it to OG in the corner, knowing your personnel, that OG, since March 4th, is the 3rd highest three-point shooter in the league with a minimum number of attempts. He's over 50%. Fred knows that as a point guard. I'm getting this guy the ball. And again, it's that guy that you're afraid of because not only can he go off when he decides everybody else is going to get involved, you can't stop one guy. There's a whole party you got to look after. And I thought Fred did a really good job of that. And to me, I guess the 20 number hit me, having been around the team from jump. I've seen the other 3 20-20 games, and they were point rebound games. Popeye Jones had one in like the second year of the franchise, and then Chris Bosh had a couple. And as soon as I saw 20 assists, I'm like, wait a minute, that's a record. It snuck up on me. You know, we're doing the game. It's like 15, 16. I'm going, he's heading for a record. And he hits 20. And again, like Sherm said, the way it was done, Charlotte was never, they hung around, but I never thought they were a threat to win that game the way Fred set the tone and the way the Raptors continued to play.
All right, well, the game ball goes to Fred VanVleet, but the birthday cake goes to Pascal Siakam, 36 points on his 29th birthday. And how important and big was that, knowing that Pascal was kind of trending away from the style of play that he had at the beginning of the year, but to see him come up with a big game, especially in the third quarter there, Jonesy?
I think I'm seeing a part of Pascal more so now that's exposing itself in a good way, that I'm going to be patient, look for my opportunities. Our offense can go a different way with Fred and Jakob and Scotty, but when I get it going, everybody back off. I'm going to ride this until it dies and kind of help us get a lead or cut a deficit.
And they need that from him.
Yeah, they do. And then when it peters out, we'll go back to the other stuff, and I'll look for mine selectively again to see if it heats up again. I just thought the way he's integrating himself into the offense now and the offensive flow, it has changed a lot since Jakob Poeltl has showed up.
Yeah, I said this on Raptors Tonight, which was Raptors in the evening because it was such an early game yesterday.
Raptors afternoon.
Yeah, but I just think that he needs to play Charlotte every game. Yeah. You know, he's been on fire against Charlotte. But what he does, and this is kind of a microcosm of Pascal, in that game against Philadelphia, if he had a third quarter, just a third quarter like he had against Charlotte, maybe the Raptors get a W after a poor second quarter. But he's figuring out how to operate in this offense.
Yeah.
And he can still get his isolation moments within the flow of the offense now, as opposed to outside of the offense earlier in the season. So he did a great job. I mean, he was aggressive. He was downhill, 2 feet in the paint, knew there was no buddy in the paint that he really needed to be afraid of. Jones was pretty good in terms of his length and athleticism, but overall he was attacking. And I think when Pascal's playing at that level, OG's going to be open more. Fred's going to be open more. Guys, Scotty Barnes is going to have more room to operate because he can attract so many people. And the best thing about Pascal is when he attracts that second or third defender, he's going to move the ball. He's going to find somebody. So it's not sticky when he gets going and he knows he's got everybody focused on him, he's going to get rid of the ball.
Speaking of ball movement and end-of-season urgency, we hand you off to Savannah Hamilton.
Thanks, Akil. Well, I'm still in Spectrum Center where the Raptors just took on the Charlotte Hornets and had a very impressive game, of course, with Fred VanVleet's 20 assists. I'll get to that in just a little bit, but I think the whole team knows the sense of urgency that is needed right now, because it's not just about play-in and making the play-in, which they clinched. It's about positioning now, and if they can make a push for 8th place and maybe even 7th if all the chips fall in the correct order. But that's something that they have to take care of business by focusing on each game ahead of them. And that's what Jakob Poeltl also said in the press conference just after the game. He said every single game is a must-win game, and that's what they've been saying for the past couple of weeks, as Fred also touched on it. Fred even said that, hey, this conversation is becoming a little bit cliche because everybody knows that this is what they have to get done and keep doing, and the results will happen when you have games where you're dropping 20 assists and breaking franchise records as they have been today. But when you think about why Fred was able to do that, he said that he credits a lot of that to Jakob Poeltl, because he opened the court in a sense of him being a rim threat, because now when he's rolling, you got to guard him in the paint, which also opens up open threes. And so I asked him about that because Scotty Barnes earlier this week had his career high of 12 assists, and now Fred with the franchise record. So just very impressive basketball all around. Back to you, Akil.
And with that win, the Raptors have officially clinched a play-in spot. Sherm, I'll turn to you now. 4 games remaining, and we know it's a game-by-game basis how you approach things, but what do you need to see from this Raptors group as they inch towards the end of the year?
I still want them to work on being more consistent, number one. I think we're seeing a team that can have great defensive spurts, and then they can have that disappearing act on the defensive end. Offensively, I'd like to see games where, you get Scotty, Pascal, Freddie, OG, you get the main guys all involved on a consistent level. Everybody's not going to score 30, but just get them consistently involved offensively. And I just think there's a balance that they can strike moving forward. Now they're going to get a chance against Charlotte to do it again, which helps. But the 3 games after that will be interesting, right? Because depending on where Boston is and where Milwaukee is, what are they playing for?
Yeah.
It might be a cakewalk in some respects, but I just think they've got to continue to be consistent. They've got to find that consistency, because if they do, they can make it real murky in the playoffs.
I've said that all along, Sherm. I don't think, as mercurial as this team has been, up, down, I don't think there's anybody at the top of the East, Boston, Milwaukee, maybe even on an outside Philadelphia, if they get into this 2-hole, putting their hand up and saying, yeah, we'll play Toronto. I don't see that. I just see them as a potentially very dangerous team. And even if you beat them, they could make it tough for you. They could give another team a template for things that work. And these last 4 games, you said, they're all up in the air. The last 3 in particular, because if Boston can't catch Milwaukee, will they actually play people? If Milwaukee's locked in on that last Sunday, who plays? Who doesn't play? So there are so many moving parts. But if you're the Raptors, you need to concentrate on consolidating all of your material for the playoffs. No mistakes. You're not going to have. You can't have a defensive breakdown where 2 guys look at each other and go, "I thought you had him. I thought you can't." You can't have that, because there's no Charlottes in the playoffs. There's no. There's no Detroits. That doesn't happen. Milwaukee, Boston, they will make you pay. They will take advantage of those breakdowns. So this is the time to get it galvanized, consolidated, to make sure that you don't have those when it's important.
Just thought about it. I mean, there used to be the rest versus rust in terms of resting players going into the playoffs. They're going to have time. All these teams have a little bit of time with the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to sit anybody towards the end of the regular season because you're going to have about a week there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To get your rest, to kind of get your legs under you. So that might change my stance. Maybe Boston does play everybody. Maybe Milwaukee does play. That's healthy. Not anybody that's injured, but everybody that's healthy. Maybe they are competitive games down the stretch because they're going to have a chance to rest players during that week.
And maybe they figure the same way. Hey, we don't want to see Toronto. Let's bust them out here, and then we don't have to worry about them. Maybe somebody else will take care of them. So I think there's a lot of moving parts, especially in the last 3 games.
The landscape of this league continues to change. And let's talk about the Raptors for a quick second in terms of starts. They had a hot start featuring Fred and OG. OG had 11 points in that first quarter. Let's talk about OG for a moment because you talked about, Sherm, how important it was for this team to get everybody off. Jonesy, I'll turn this to you right now. OG's the one guy who isn't as aggressive as looking for his own shot consistently. So how important is that going to be over this next stretch if this team's going to fire on all cylinders for him to kind of find where that fits in the offense for this group?
I think it is really important, Akil. And you make a really salient point in that he's not the kind of guy like Fred or Pascal that looks for his own or tries to create his own all the time. And in the first quarter yesterday, the ball found him. And I think when the Raptors are moving the ball, and we talk about Fred's 20 assists. It was also a franchise high for assists. So let's not bury the lead there or have that lost in the conversation. And OG is a beneficiary of that. When the ball is moving and it gets to him in the right spots and he can catch and shoot, or put it on the floor decisively and go to the basket with a lane, or get into the lane. He's got the little kind of fall away, the little jump stop, fade back. When he can get to his spots and get into those moves that produce a basket for him, I think it's huge. And again, it comes off everybody else doing their job too, because he's not always that guy that takes the ball under his arm and tries to find his own shot.
Yeah, OG to me is the term 3-and-D.
Yeah.
On steroids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because he's got not only the 3-and-D, but he's got a little bit that if you throw him the ball, he can get you something, whether it's on the block or it's off the dribble. Now, he doesn't have – his game isn't expanded to the point where you isolate him multiple times in a game and say, hey, go get something. But he can have his moments in a game where he can get something one-on-one. So I just think that OG's role right now is clearly defined, and he's playing it at the maximum level. And I think when you're trying to create a good team, a really good team, you need role definition. And maybe next season that changes for OG based on how much he works on his game and the changes with the team. But right now, he's fulfilling that role to the maximum. And it's unfortunate because he doesn't get the recognition at times that I feel he should get, because he is playing some other level basketball based on what his production numbers are.
All right, a little concern there with OG and the ankle. And for an update on OG's status, we hand you off to the head coach of the Toronto Raptors, Nick Nurse.
It's kind of cool that Fred now has a points record and assist record, franchise all time. What do you think of him?
Yeah, it was really good. I think that he got the ball really a lot of places where it needed to go, and some guys were at the end of that. A lot of cuts and at the basket and stuff like that got him some numbers. That's a heck of an honor. There's been some great guards, in the history of the organization, so that's really something. It really is.
Some of you guys played with discipline most of the time. You're going to be caught up in yours, we get ours kind of game. What do you think of that?
Only one section, right? I think the second half, it was like 22-20 them in the first 3.5 minutes. No, 5 minutes maybe, right? I think there was one section where, I thought we played really disciplined offensively. I mean, we didn't make a lot of really good shots. Like, we had some really nice 2-pass combos to corner threes, and we didn't make a one of them, right? But it still means, like what you said, we were still doing the right things and getting it where it was supposed to go, right? And that's all you can do.
We've talked a lot about the shot making on your team this year. How difficult is Fred's balance on the night-to-night between being one of the better distributors on the team and definitely being like the most dangerous off the ball shooter?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that those things are that related. Again, he got 8 threes tonight, and I think they were all like really good ones. I mean, there probably one that wasn't or something, but that's a good number. And this is the first, like, it's really been coming off his hand great. Like, even the ones he's been missing have been, in and out or whatever. Tonight it wasn't that way for him shooting it. So I just think both him and OG have gotten much cleaner with their mechanics and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not too worried about it.
Any update on OG?
Mild sprain, Alex, from Alex McKechnie.
Some more big news coming out of the NBA this weekend. It is reported that the NBA and the NBA Players Association have come to terms on a new collective bargaining agreement that would come into effect after this one runs out. And some of the high points of this one is, of course, a minimum of 65 games in order to be eligible for some of the league's bigger prizes in terms of individual awards for the players. And then you got to look at the salary cap, the upper limit extensions increasing from 120 to 140%. Teams $17.5 million over salary cap will not have access to that mid-level exemption in free agency. So I'm going to throw it to you guys. What's your favorite new wrinkle that they've thrown into this new deal? Sure, Jonesy, I'll start with you.
I mean, I think the owners are protecting themselves a little bit with the upper limit on extensions because the players, in their eyes, probably gathering more powers in terms of this era of what they call player empowerment and player movement.
But they couldn't get that hard cap that they wanted.
No, but this is a way to still put limits around the soft cap and boundaries. They've talked about teams can't go wildly spending over the limit even if they have the money. So they're trying to put some constraints on that. I look at the tournament in this era where we're trying to figure out load management.
Yeah.
I'm not sure adding a tournament in the middle of the season. And I know there are some incentives around money and the standings and all of those things. I'm not. That's the one I'm not sure about. But listen, the bottom line is there was too much money and things were going too well to have any kind of labor disruption where there was a lockout or a strike and have the fans totally sour, Akil, on the league. So it's nice that they have this done, and hopefully we can put it to bed and not hear anything more. I like the minimum games to get an award. The one other provision I would put in is, and I know some media members that have given up their votes because they are uncomfortable with their vote, a la Klay Thompson 2 years ago.
Being public?
No, determining whether a guy gets a supermax contract or not, right? So some of the media members that I know have said, I'm not with this. I'm not. I mean, in chats, I've even discussed with some media people, maybe it should be the coaches and the GMs voting for all NBA since it's tied to money because they're the ones that'll know, yeah, I'm going to pay Akil, so I would vote for him for all NBA. And if I vote for him for all NBA and his team doesn't want to pay him, maybe I'll get a shot at him later. So that's something that I'd kind of like to see going forward.
Yeah, that tournament is interesting to me. I'm really interested to see how that plays out. Now, it's after the 23-24 season, but I wonder how it's going to potentially impact the regular season, how it's going to impact, the whole idea of what the NBA is. This play-in tournament has obviously worked out. It's created great basketball down the stretch. Fans are getting what they deserve.
Anti-tanking.
Yeah, anti-tanking. There's a lot of positives with the play-in tournament, so check mark for the NBA for that. This in-season tournament now is going to be interesting, and that's the only thing I just like to see how this thing plays out and the vibe around it. I mean, I'm always for players making more money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, owners have money. I'm always for players making more money. So that
the league has value.
that percentage increase is great for players. Think about a guy like OG.
Yeah.
I mean, now he has the opportunity to really cash in. You know what I mean? At a higher level. So players getting more money, I think, with the money that's involved in the NBA and its product, I'm not mad at players getting more money.
And it's interesting, this was done before the new TV deal was settled.
Yes.
Right? So the owners kind of All right, let's do this. Okay, good. Well, we might have a whole bunch more money coming in over here that these guys now don't have access to. So
They didn't change the number of
split?
games, right?
no,
It's still 82, right?
still
Yes,
82.
that one.
That's going to be
and-
interesting too with
yeah.
that tournament.
Yeah.
Maybe by then they might do something.
Well,
with
I've heard in the reports that some of the tournament stuff is going to count towards regular season and regular season games.
That's the most interesting thing is how does
There's
that
a lot
play
to
out?
play, and there's a lot to factor in with
especially
this.
when we're fighting load management too. Now you put a tournament in the middle of the season. Like, who's going to play in it? Are your best guys going to play? Is it worth them playing? If it's for money, will they want to play? There's a lot of questions.
All right, from the pro game, let's switch to the college game. Big weekend with the women's tournament. Tonight we've got the men's game. Let's first off talk about the highlights of the women's tournament. Sherm, I'll start with you. What did you take away from the women's tournament, whether it was that final or maybe what Dawn Staley said after her South Carolina team?
First of all, Dawn Staley's a monster.
Yeah, big ups,
She
big
was
ups.
great
She's
as a
my hero,
basketball
man.
player,
She's my hero.
and she's turning into the new Gino Auriemma now
Yeah.
with South Carolina, in terms of the expectations and the championships that will follow. But she's the top, she's one of the best coaches in the game, period. But Caitlin's different.
Oh, yeah.
She's different.
Caitlin Clark is a beast.
She's different, flat out. She is must-watch TV.
Yeah.
When she's on, you have to watch. She's special. She's going to do incredible things. And this, to me, basketball, for whatever reason, who likes it or not, is a star-driven sport. She is a star. She's going to enter the WNBA. She's going to have a target on her back, and she is going to change what that league looks like, 100%. And I've always felt that players like that are transcendent. They make a difference, and the shift is significant when they hit the market. And she's going to be one of those players. She's already doing it in college. When she gets to the next level, she's going to do it there as well. She's going to be a player that is going to change the dynamic of women's basketball.
Similar to what Steph did with the men's game. And I look at her, not to draw that comparison, but to Sherm's point, I got to watch her.
She's got the quickest trigger I've ever seen. In the women's game.
I got to watch her play,
phenomenal.
but I'm gonna look at the whole tournament in general. It was spectacular basketball, like the entire tournament. If you were able to watch some of the regional finals, and we got a Canadian at South Carolina that came in and she was huge on Friday night when Aaliyah Boston went to the bench. Letitia was terrific, and just the entire skill level of basketball in that tournament was spectacular. It was terrific basketball. You got to watch Caitlin Clark, and you're talking about her going to the WNBA, Sherm. Because of the COVID stuff, she still has potentially 2 years left at Iowa.
She may not need him, in my opinion.
Well, but wait a minute now. Does she want to take a pay cut?
Exactly. That's the thing. There's more money.
I've heard reports that her NIL deal is close to $200,000, and that's just now.
Yeah.
And Nike is one of the people that she's signed with. She's blown up now. What's her NIL deal going to be like next year or the year after? And can she afford the pay cut going to the WNBA? So, but the basketball was spectacular. It really was. It was riveting, and the skill level in it all too.
Yeah.
Like some of the shot making by LSU at the end of the game, in the final game, it was awesome basketball.
The women have put the pressure on the men to live up to that final so quickly. I want to know, who do you got? You got the Aztecs or you got the Huskies? Sherm, start with you.
I'm going with UConn.
Okay.
I just think that they have been the best consistent team in the tournament. Their bigs, tough to deal with. Their size and their strength, and they've got some guys who just go get it. San Diego, tough team, but I just think that it's UConn.
I think UConn, although I will say this, if San Diego State can find a way to muddy the game and keep it slow, they may have enough strength to put up a fight. I see UConn winning, but, hey, man, these games are so unpredictable that let's let it play out. I'm looking forward to watching.
And when you let it play out, you leave it in the hands of the players. And right now, we leave it in the hands of the players right now as we head to the podium.
This year, occasionally, he's been criticized for maybe shooting too much for this team. Can you describe how important his ability to shoot, like both catching, but especially off the dribble, is to free up the offense?
I mean, I think it's one of those things where like he sometimes gets criticized for shooting too much when really he's like, there's a lot of situations where he's stuck, like having to take a bad shot at the end of the shot clock, like having to try and create something like in the last second effort, like again, like to finish out a quarter, to finish like a possession, like with the shot clock running down, stuff like that. And then obviously like we need him to. It's one of those things where like the flow of the offense, like sometimes you just need to take certain shots. Like it's not just Fred, it's everybody on the court. Like if we have an action, we have a drive, we have a kick out, and then a swing one more, and like you have a wide open shot. Even if you're not a 40-50% three-point shooter, you got to take that shot every time for the flow of the offense, because if you then try and look for one more and it's not there, the whole thing breaks down and you end up with an even worse shot.
The game slowing down and you get more experience. Has that helped you with your role to the basket?
For sure, I think that's the case for any basketball player. It's definitely helped me out a lot too. I'd say my style of play, I'm still very much like I try to keep moving at all times. Like I try not to get too stationary. I feel like my shots are a little bit less effective when I get stationary too much. So I try to keep it moving at all times, but just definitely slow it down for me. It's easier to make those reads.
We're seeing some of the stats come in terms of you and Will Chamberlain as guys who own scoring and passing record and assist records for the team. I mean, what does the franchise record for assists mean to you? And I assume it's not something you're shooting for, but what does that number mean to you?
I mean, today it just means that we played good and we got to win. I'll be able to appreciate all this stuff at a later time. The farther I get away from 54, the more I appreciate it. So maybe it'll be the same thing with this. But, just really thankful, for my teammates and just the way they were screening and finishing in the paint. And, OG's been on a burner, so, with the three-pointer. So just really appreciative of the group and the way we played today. And they made it, pretty easy on me. I just had to find them in the right spots.
You've touched on this a bit this year, but obviously this team has offensive limitations in certain ways. For you, what has the balance been like between, you're one of the most dynamic off-the-ball shooters on the team, or shooters on movement, I should say, but also you're one of the better distributors on the team. What's that like on a night-to-night basis to have the balance?
I think just diving into the details and just understanding what each team presents and just trying to take the approach of taking whatever the defense gives. And some nights that mean I'm more aggressive with my shot, and some nights that mean I'm more aggressive with the ball in my hands making plays. Some nights I'm off the ball. So just kind of depending on what the defense brings, where our team is, having a feel for my teammates and where they're at. Scotty been amazing the last couple of games with the ball in his hands. He got banged up right away in the first quarter a couple of times. So, I just, took it upon myself to be a little bit more aggressive. So just trying to read and react and, just take whatever the defense gives.
All right. Before we wrap it up quickly, thoughts ahead of this second matchup with the Charlotte Hornets. Sherm, we'll start with you.
Second verse, same as the first.
Okay, I like that one. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
These baseball series, as I call them, where you go into the city for 2 games, they're tough to sweep. It's like a doubleheader in baseball. Charlotte's going to be coming back, making adjustments, different kind of energy. I don't know how many more healthy players they're going to have, but if you're Toronto, don't fall into any kind of traps. Play this game, moving forward, not like you have one in your pocket or you're looking ahead to Boston.
All right, lock into TSN ahead. Sportsnet 590 will have the radio call, but it's a 7 p.m. game on TSN. Hornets versus Raptors. That does it for another episode of Raptors Today. On behalf of Sherman Hamilton and Paul Jones, I'm Akil Augustine. Thank you for watching.